जो मैं पलक ढांप तो है लूं, ना मैं देखूं गैर को, ना मैं तो देखने दूं। सांसों की माला पे, हाँ सांसों की माला पे सिमरूं मैं पी का नाम, पी का नाम। अपने मन की मैं जानूं और पी के मन की राम। सांसों की माला पे सिमरूं मैं पी का नाम, पी का नाम। बख्शा गुनाहों को सुन के दुआओं को रब्बा प्यार है, तूने सबको ही दे दिया। मेरी भी आहों को सुन ले दुआओं को, मुझको वो दिला मैंने जिसको है दिल दिया। ओ बख्शा गुनाहों को सुन के दुआओं को रब्बा प्यार है, तूने सबको ही दे दिया। मेरी भी आहों को सुन ले दुआओं को, मुझको वो दिला मैंने जिसको है दिल दिया। आसमां उसको दे इतना बता, वो जो मुझे देख के हंसे। पाना चाहूं रात दिन जिसे, रब्बा मेरे नाम करूं से। तेनू दिल दा वास्ता अज दिन चढ़िया तेरे रंग जाता क्या तेरा है, मैंने कौन सी तुझसे जन्नत मांग ली। कैसा खुदा है तू, बस नाम का है तू रब्बा, जो तेरी इतनी सी भी ना चली। मांगा जो मेरा है जाता क्या तेरा है, मैंने कौन सी तुझसे जन्नत मांग ली। कैसा खुदा है तू, बस नाम का है तू रब्बा, जो तेरी इतनी सी भी ना चली। चाहिए जो मुझे कर दे तू मुझको अता, जीती रहे सल्तनत तेरी, जीती रहे आशिकी मेरी। दे दे मुझे जिंदगी मेरी, तेनू दिल दा वास्ता रब्बा मेरे दिन उस मोड़ से शुरू करें फिर ये जिंदगी,
उस मोड़ से शुरू करें फिर ये जिंदगी।
हर शय जहाँ हसीन थी, हम तुम थे अजनबी। उस मोड़ से शुरू करें फिर ये जिंदगी।
लेकर चले थे हम जिन्हें जन्नत के ख्वाब थे, लेकर चले थे हम जिन्हें जन्नत के ख्वाब थे। फूलों के ख्वाब थे वो, मोहब्बत के ख्वाब थे, लेकिन कहाँ है इनमें वो पहली सी दिलकशी। उस मोड़ से शुरू करें फिर ये जिंदगी।
रहते थे हम हसीन ख्यालों की भीड़ में, रहते थे हम हसीन ख्यालों की भीड़ में। उलझे हुए हैं आज सवालों की भीड़ में। आने लगी है याद वो फुर्सत की हर घड़ी। उस मोड़ से शुरू करें फिर ये जिंदगी। हर शय जहाँ हसीन थी, हम तुम थे अजनबी। उस मोड़ से शुरू करें फिर ये जिंदगी।
शायद ये बात हमसे कोई चाल चल गया,
शायद ये बात हमसे कोई चाल चल गया, रिश्ता वफा का और भी रंगों में ढल गया, अशकों की चांदनी से थी बेहतर वो धूप ही, उस मोड़ से शुरू करें फिर ये जिंदगी, हर शय जहाँ हसीन थी, हम तुम थे अजनबी, उस मोड़ से शुरू करें फिर ये जिंदगी। होठों से छू लो तुम, मेरा गीत अमर कर दो, होठों से छू लो तुम, मेरा गीत
I don't know if it
अमर
happens to
कर
you, but the more that I paint, the less I want to refine my paintings. This painting right here started just as a small doodle for me to test my new brushes. After slapping some color for the base of my canvas, I started playing with the base colors of my little character portrait. And if you're curious about that pink that is just coming through the colors, that is an underpainting that I have been using just because it makes my colors feel more vibrant. After that, I put a multiply layer with the basic shadows of my portrait. I went with a saturated red with these ones because I wanted to have some playful colors, and look how sloppy those shadows are. And check out the next step. Here is where I think that the key to making sloppy paintings that look decent is, and that is those dark spots around my painting. Those are the occlusion points, and those are like the deeper shadows of my character. Without it, it's a sloppy mess. With it, it's a tolerable mess. And after that, just a little bit of overpaint and we are done. And before you go, I got a gift. Stop doing master studies is something that I would never tell you because I love doing them. I think they are a great way of creating new art without having to stress about what to create.
दो, बन जाओ मीत मेरे, मेरी प्रीत अमर कर दो, होठों से छू लो तुम, मेरा गीत अमर कर दो। ना उम्र की सीमा हो, ना जन्म का हो बंधन, ना उम्र की सीमा हो, ना जन्म का हो बंधन, जब प्यार करे कोई तो देखे केवल मन, नई रीत चला कर तुम, ये रीत अमर कर दो, नई रीत चला कर तुम, ये रीत अमर कर दो। आकाश का सूनापन मेरे तन्हा मन में, आकाश का सूनापन मेरे तन्हा मन में, पायल छनकाती तुम, आ जाओ जीवन में, सांसें देकर अपनी, संगीत अमर कर दो, संगीत अमर कर दो, मेरा गीत अमर कर दो। जग ने छीना मुझसे, मुझे जो भी लगा प्यारा, जग ने छीना मुझसे, मुझे जो भी लगा प्यारा, सब जीता किए मुझसे, मैं हरदम ही हारा, तुम हार के दिल अपना, मेरी जीत अमर कर दो, तुम हार के दिल अपना, मेरी जीत अमर कर दो, होठों से छू लो तुम, मेरा गीत अमर कर दो। मौजों की रवानी है, जिंदगी और कुछ भी नहीं, तेरी मेरी कहानी है, एक प्यार का नगमा है, मौजों की रवानी है। जिंदगी और कुछ भी नहीं, तेरी मेरी कहानी है। कुछ पाकर खोना है, कुछ खोकर पाना है। जीवन का मतलब तो आना और जाना है। कुछ पाकर खोना है, कुछ खोकर पाना है। जीवन का मतलब तो आना और जाना है। दो पल के जीवन से एक उम्र चुरानी है। जिंदगी और कुछ भी नहीं, तेरी मेरी कहानी है। एक प्यार का नगमा है, मौजों की रवानी है। जिंदगी और कुछ भी नहीं, तेरी मेरी कहानी है। तू धार है नदिया की, मैं तेरा किनारा हूँ। तू मेरा सहारा है, मैं तेरा सहारा हूँ। आँखों में समंदर है, आशाओं का पानी है। जिंदगी और कुछ भी नहीं, तेरी मेरी कहानी है। एक प्यार का नगमा है, मौजों की रवानी है। जिंदगी और कुछ भी नहीं, तेरी मेरी कहानी है। जिंदगी और कुछ भी नहीं, तेरी मेरी कहानी है। तेरे आने की जब खबर महके, तेरे आने की जब खबर महके, तेरी खुशबू से सारा घर महके। तेरे आने की जब खबर महके तेरी खुशबू से सारा घर महके शाम महके तेरे तसव्वुर से शाम महके तेरे तसव्वुर से शाम के बाद फिर सहर महके शाम के बाद फिर सहर महके तेरे आने की जब खबर महके तेरी खुशबू से सारा घर महके रात भर सोचता रहा तुझको रात भर सोचता रहा तुझको ज़हनो दिल मेरे रात भर महके ज़हनो दिल मेरे रात भर महके तेरे आने की जब खबर महके तेरी खुशबू से सारा घर महके याद आए तो दिल मुनव्वर हो याद आए तो दिल मुनव्वर हो दीद हो जाए तो नजर महके दीद हो जाए तो नजर महके तेरे आने की जब खबर महके तेरी खुशबू से सारा घर महके वो घड़ी दो घड़ी जहाँ बैठे वो घड़ी दो घड़ी जहाँ बैठे वो ज़मीं महके वो शजर महके वो ज़मीं महके वो शजर महके तेरे आने की जब खबर महके तेरी खुशबू से सारा घर महके तेरे बारे में जब सोचा नहीं था।
Sacrificing an ultimate skill isn't something any normal person would ever consider, but when you're facing an attack faster than light and strong enough to disintegrate literally anything, it seems like more of a Sacrificing an ultimate skill isn't something any normal person would ever consider, but when you're facing an attack faster than light and strong enough to disintegrate literally anything, it seems like more of a fair trade when the only other option is, well, getting purified out of existence. It's not often we get to see Rimuru with his back against the wall like this, but if even Raphael's in a panic, it's probably best to listen. Now, the loss of Beelzebub isn't what I would even consider the most important part of this fight, since in the build-up before it, there was so much more. A back-and-forth struggle we only saw portions of in the anime where both Rimuru and Hinata believed they were on the verge of defeat. This in turn caused them to push themselves past their limits, and where Hinata used experience to push Rimuru back, Rimuru adapted and countered in the way he does best. What the anime should have shown us in between all that, though, was just how it was Hinata's offensive became so oppressive. So, as I go through her skills and the steps she took to keep up with Rimuru, hopefully you'll come to appreciate this feat of power in which a human was able to hold off a true demon lord. This iconic fight exactly as it happened in the novels. Before I get started though, there's a little surprise I want to share coming from my Mugen clothing brand. For a limited time starting today, we have this Tensida-inspired tee available for pre-order. It's a special add-on along with the Mushoku Tensei New Beginnings collection, and it'll only be available for the next 2 weeks. The shirts are a thick 100% cotton for quality and comfort, and the designs are all screen printed so you can be sure they'll never fade. We also ship anywhere internationally, so no matter where you are in the world, you can be sure that we'll get them to you. As far as this design in particular goes, this is probably my favorite Mugen piece yet. It's not so out there that everyone will know it's anime, but the gray and teal contrast definitely makes it clear that it's slime related. So, if you want to get yours before it's gone forever, contrast definitely makes it clear. It's not so out there that everyone will know it's anime, but the gray and teal contrast definitely makes it clear that it's slime related. So, if you want to get yours before it's gone forever, then be sure to order using the link down in the description. I'll also be giving one away to those who follow the Instagram. But now, let's talk about what we missed from this epic showdown. Hinata's past was actually a core part preceding this fight, since not only did it give context for as to why she left Shizue, but it also explained why victory was the only option here. It's a pretty tragic backstory going all the way back to her past life, but I have a feeling it's something that'll be covered next episode. If it doesn't, then I'll talk about it next video, but for now what you need to know is that Hinata's position is one that she feels stuck in. You see, since her goal is to make a world where everyone can be happy, this current skirmish with Tempest has brought all that to a standstill. Negotiations were unfortunately far behind her, and if she was ever going to get the chance to explain why things turned out the way they did, she knew the only way she could was by winning. She felt victory was the only way to reopen the conversation, since with the way Rimuru was now, he didn't seem like he was willing to listen at all. To Hinata, this was the breaking point defining the very future that she was working towards, and if she wanted to continue on this path that she sought out for herself, then the first step on it was to beat Rimuru here. Only then would she have the chance to explain things, and only then did she think that Rimuru would listen. This brings us now to the actual fight, and the first thing Hinata did was activate her Measurer skill. A unique skill comprised of the sub-skill Analyze and Appraise, which if you've watched my past videos you'd know is also part of Rimuru's Raphael skill. It allows Hinata to glean information of the person she's scanning, but can only do so if they're weak enough. Now that Rimuru possesses an ultimate skill, determining his strength isn't something her own skills can do anymore. It was indication that his power had risen to at least her levels or higher. It was when she activated her Usurper skill next that's when she knew he was at the same level of Luminous now. Reason being that, while normally Usurper would always give her the advantage over those more powerful than her, the results she saw now was one she'd only ever seen once before. To give a bit of context for how this skill works first though, it basically gave her the ability to steal the skills of those who were stronger than her. You see, if she ever found herself faced against an opponent who was superior, Usurper would rob their skills and make them her own. It didn't mean that she could use them as proficiently as the person that she was stealing them from, but to take away something her opponent worked so hard to obtain, well, that was a devastating enough blow to change the tide of any battle. Of course, this didn't work if the opponent she was facing was weaker than her, and it's the reason Usurper didn't work on Rimuru when she fought him the first time. Her attempt at using it came back as not applicable, and that only happened when she was fighting someone not as skilled as her. You may be wondering how it was she was able to attempt to steal Ifrit then, and that was a special sub-skill that came from her mastery of Usurper. By honing her skills to the point that she had, Hinata developed a new part of Usurper called Force Takeover. It was a special rule-breaking sub-skill that allowed her to rob powers from opponents that were weaker than her. It probably didn't work as efficiently as Usurper did, but it was definitely a valuable asset, making her robber abilities even more versatile. Now, in the cases when she was fighting someone stronger, the results of her Usurper skill would come back as either fail or success. Fail just meant it didn't work this time, but with zero cost to attempting the skill again, Hinata could just continuously use Usurper until it finally did work. Given enough time and space, she could always make the skill succeed no matter what the circumstances were. That's why to see her results on Rimuru come back as blocked, it was a surprise that she'd only ever experienced once before. One unique to those in possession of an ultimate skill like Rimuru and Luminous. So, this resulted in her resorting to the greatest weapons in her arsenal, which was the legendary blade Moonlight given to her by Luminous and the original Holy Spirit armor from the Holy Western Church. The armor was the church's greatest countermeasure against monsters, and it was an item wielded only by the great heroes of the past. Equipment that could only be worn by those truly beloved by the spirits, and its purpose was for fighting against the likes of dragons and other superior class monsters. Bearing such armor freed Hinata of all her restrictions, and it ascended her to a level beyond that of just enlightened. At this point, she was now at the saint level, an awakened state similar to that of a demon lord. Hinata knew even this had little chance of winning, but even so, she was still excited a bit. She couldn't help but smile at the fierce battle she was about to experience. This brings us now to Rimuru's perspective, and to him this opponent with no weaknesses somehow just became even more powerful. Her weapon was unlike any he'd ever seen before, and if he was gonna compete, he knew he needed the one that he currently had Kurobe making. This was a sword that had been cooking in his stomach for quite a while now, taking in constant exposure to a steady stream of magicules. Only recently had Rimuru taken it out though, and because of that, it was still a work in progress currently back at Kurobe's workshop. That being the case, the only substitute Rimuru could think of was to use Uriel and have it apply a magic aura to his current blade, resulting in the dark flames that we see in the anime. Now, the initial exchange was far faster than we can even imagine, since even with Rimuru's mind accelerate increasing his brain speed to 1,000,000 times the normal, he still struggled to just barely react to Hinata. It was almost as if he was fighting Milim all over again. Fortunately, this time he wasn't losing, but with no blows being landed at all, he definitely wasn't winning either. It's actually pretty crazy when you remember how Hinata's currently going up against a true demon lord. Rimuru thought his awakening would give him the advantage, but instead it just made the two of them even. In fact, it made him realize that in their last fight, Hinata wasn't even trying. If she was, then he knew he wouldn't be here to be fighting her this second time. Now, to explain how it is Hinata is able to even keep up, it's about as strenuous and taxing as you might think it is. Remember, Hinata isn't like Rimuru in the sense that she can keep fighting forever. She is only human, and part of her being human means that there's a limit to her endurance. Her muscles will ache and breathing becomes short, and that's two things that Rimuru doesn't even have to worry about. Her skills and arts help to make those issues less impactful, but when facing monsters, those were just the disadvantages that came with it. So her measure of skill would speed up her mind to 1,000 times faster than normal, but even with that making the world seem like it was at a standstill, it still wasn't enough to land a strike on Rimuru yet. She knew she needed to push even further beyond that, and though the pressure from such mental strain started to burst capillaries in her brain, her self-regenerative magic restored them before any signs of weakness could be exhibited. She would then use Measure's prediction to figure out where Rimuru was going to attack, and this just barely helped her dodge Rimuru's counters. So, though the anime made it seem like Hinata was unfazed by everything, in actuality her body was slowly reaching its limit. If she truly was going to beat Rimuru in this battle here, then what she needed most was a demi-human spiritual body. That was the final wall that she was yet to overcome in this life, the last hurdle before finally being freed from the shackles currently limiting her. Fortunately, the key difference between her and Rimuru was years of training, since while sure Rimuru can copy skills and repeat the movements necessary to grasp the fundamentals, knowing how best to use them was completely different. It was something only years of experience could truly replicate, and Rimuru's novice application of such made it clear that that was exactly what was happening here. A good example is the way both were continuously dodging each other, since while Rimuru was relying on his physical gifts and mind acceleration of a million, Hinata was making up for her slower processing with raw talent and experience. Rimuru couldn't understand how it was that was possible, and it's that very inability to do so which shows just how inexperienced he truly is. Like, he knows he's stronger and more gifted in every aspect, yet no matter how hard he tries, nothing will work on her. So, just like how Hinata knew that defeat was imminent, so too did Rimuru come to that same conclusion should things continue like this. In fact, the only person Rimuru believed could keep up with Hinata right now was probably Hakudo, and even he would lose. This resulted in the learning of the skill Predict Future Attack, and it's important to know that it wasn't acquired. You see, unlike how most of his skills were acquired via some form of awakening or evolution, this one was learned only by watching Hinata. By observing her movements and reasoning that she was predicting his attacks in order to dodge, Rimuru had learned how to do so himself. He had essentially copied her years of experience by simply watching her. This new skill now displayed every move Hinata was going to make, and rather than identify every possibility of attack, it instead highlighted only the guaranteed attacks. If the line of a blade was showing up as a prediction, then there was a 100% chance that Hinata would be attacking that way. It completely removed the element of surprise from the battle and essentially secured what Rimuru thought was victory. It only took a couple of exchanges for Hinata to realize that something was different now, and as soon as she realized his predictive calculations were superior to her own, that's when Hinata knew her odds of winning were minimal now. She could no longer go easy or try to avoid killing him, since to hold back in the slightest would just do her a disservice. This brings us now to Hinata's Melt Slash, which was a type of magic weapon fusion from the Overblade family. A form of weapon art that makes use of miracle-level holy magic. Rimuru didn't know how powerful this attack was going to be, but in the off chance that it did end up killing him, he had told Benimaru that he was next in line ahead of him. Hinata, on the other hand, examined the battlefield around her, and when she saw that her comrades were being treated fairly, more than ever did she want to win the fight so that she could discuss things anew with Rimuru. She was so dead set on victory being the only way to renegotiate things that her ultimate move was what she felt circumstances called for now. The reason she put on such a spectacle while casting it was because, since she knew Rimuru was gonna end up copying it anyway, she wanted to ensure his replication of it was perfect. As a disintegration spell that could destroy literally anything, it was only natural it be respected as the overwhelming force it was. I mean, the novel describes it as a power to dispel and evaporate all types of evil, but what it's actually doing is purifying everything. Whether you want to call it disintegration or purification, anything and everything including magicules and the spiritrons that make them up were all dissipated the moment they came into contact with Hinata's Melt Slash. That's why nothing could possibly defend against it, since anything Rimuru could put up would be effectively meaningless. Then, as an attack that approached at supposedly light speed, dodging wasn't a possibility either. The only thing Rimuru could do was stand there as this spiritual light bore towards him ready to split him in half. Fortunately, Hinata only aimed for his stomach, so even if the spell did hit and make contact, Rimuru still should have survived just with only his head left. The rest would be seared off as if they weren't even part of him in the first place. That's when Raphael would create the plan to sacrifice Beelzebub instead, and with the right timing, Melt Slash would disintegrate that in place of Rimuru. All the magicules which once consisted of that ultimate skill were now purified and gone from existence. In terms of a percentage, it was about 70% of all the magicules Rimuru currently had in him. Luckily, that meant Rimuru could survive another day, but at the same time it came at the cost of one of his ultimate skills. A pretty massive price considering what was at stake, but when you hear Raphael panic, I suppose you just listen. So, with Hinata's attack stopped and her sword and armor now gone, the fight between her and Rimuru was now over. It was a pretty intense back and forth of power versus experience that, in my opinion, could have done a bit more to highlight Hinata. I'm sure no one thought that she could keep up with him after his awakening, but here she was proving otherwise. In fact, if not for Rimuru learning that new skill right on the fly, then it's very possible this fight could have turned out pretty differently. But yeah, that's pretty much everything you missed from Hinata vs Rimuru. If you liked what you saw and want to see more, then be sure to leave a like and let me know down in the comments. Now, before I go, don't forget that the Tensura-inspired Genesis T will only be available for 2 weeks. I wish I had a sample to show you guys how good the design looks in person, but unfortunately all I have right now are the Mushoku Tensei ones. The quality is going to be the exact same as these ones though, so what you can expect is a thick 100% cotton tee that's slightly oversized and boxy. So, if you want to secure yours before it's gone forever, then be sure to get your order in using the link down in the description. I'll also be giving one away for those who follow the Mugen Instagram, so be sure to check that out too if you want a chance to win one. But anyway, as always, thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this type of anime content, then you already know what to do. So, until next time, ciao!
Hello everyone, welcome to the Lightning Ball channel. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please do so and activate the notification bell. Your support fuels my continued efforts. In our last episode, we discussed how Storm Dragon Veldora personally confronted the Empire's enemy, Scorched Dragon Velgrind, to defend the Monster Federation, managing to fight on equal footing. Unexpectedly, Velgrind abandoned her pride and, along with Emperor Rudra and Imperial Guardians Commander Tatsuya Kandu, jointly manipulated Storm Dragon. In a desperate situation, the overwhelmed Veldora thought of Rimuru. Realizing that if he were controlled, Rimuru could also be harmed, Veldora, in his final moments, severed the soul corridor with Rimuru and surrendered to the controlling magic. In this episode, we'll discuss the evolution of the Demon Legion, Black Numbers, and the birth of Mana's Seal. Let's get started. With the soul-tearing pain of losing Veldora, Rimuru entered a state of complete frenzy. It wasn't the first time Rimuru had lost reason due to anger. Previously, when Xian and several other subordinates were killed, Rimuru was filled with self-blame, regret, and rage. However, after a series of events, those subordinates were resurrected, which allowed the later Rimuru to maintain composure even in anger. But this time was different. Veldora was Rimuru's first friend in this strange world, and one could even say that Rimuru was nurtured under Veldora's magicule. Without Veldora, there would be no Rimuru. Therefore, despite his growth, Rimuru couldn't stay calm under these circumstances. At that moment, Benimaru reminded Rimuru-sama that they seemed to be trapped in a special space and asked what to do next. Rimuru knew they had fallen into this fortress of dreams from the start. Making such a significant mistake, even Lord of Wisdom felt confused, seemingly unable to believe being manipulated and losing her composure. However, Rimuru didn't care about these things anymore. After instructing Lord of Wisdom to prepare for an escape, Rimuru issued an order to everyone, stating they must find a way out immediately. With Veldora in the enemy's hands, Ramorous would be struggling to maintain the labyrinth without the huge amount of magicule. Rimuru planned to release Tempest City from the labyrinth. Once they teleported out, they would immediately engage in battle with the Empire's forces. Everyone was to prepare for the imminent confrontation. Rimuru then declared his determination to reclaim Veldora, showing no fear despite facing 2 true dragons, along with Emperor Rudra and the Imperial Guardians of the Empire. The odds of victory were irrelevant. The only thing that mattered was to crush the enemy. Lord of Wisdom quickly completed the preparations for escape, and amidst a surge of anger, Rimuru and his team used teleportation magic to return to the skies above the Monster Federation. Upon their arrival, Rimuru was confronted by the sight of 2 true dragons and an airship. As Rimuru was gearing up for a major confrontation, Lord of Wisdom issued a warning about the difficulty of defeating the Empire with their current power. Uncharacteristically, Rimuru ignored this advice and demanded a solution.
Understood. Optimal action, demon summoning, is recommended.
Rimuru commended Lord of Wisdom for this suitable suggestion. Originally, Rimuru had planned to evolve the 3 primordial demon beauties later, but now was the time to unleash their full power and scatter the enemy. Incidentally, Velgrind, noticing Rimuru and his team, widened her eyes in surprise, seemingly unable to believe that Rimuru had so swiftly escaped the so-called Fortress of Dreams. On the other side, Tatsuya Kondo promptly initiated an attack with his handgun, which was effortlessly blocked by the power of Lord of Oath's Absolute Guard. Rimuru glanced towards Kondo, noticing
Here's a problem that I have with
The story begins as we see a boy named Pei, who rushes to get to work. We learn he's just an average guy who got a normal job after graduating from college, but he finds his boss to be toxic. He makes it to the train station, and the doors are about to close, but he charges in and manages to get on just in time. We see that it's 1 minute to 9, but Pei dashes through, and he manages to sign in at the last moment. The morning goes by, and Pei starts thinking about what he should order for lunch, but he has to compare all the different discounts to get the best deal since he's broke. After he eats his lunch, he starts playing a game to relax, but when he notices his boss, he quickly tabs to a different screen. The boss watches from behind him, but doesn't notice anything. Pei continues with his game, but his boss constantly tries to catch him, trying to sneak up on him. At 6 p.m., Pei is the first to log off, preparing to get home as soon as possible, but he's stopped by his boss. His boss asks for a copy of his presentation, but Pei notes that the deadline is a week away. His boss insists on getting it today, but Pei refuses, telling his boss off. His boss threatens to fire him, but he doesn't care, telling his boss not to forget his severance or else he will sue. But we see this was just all his imagination, as he agrees to work overtime to get the presentation done. We see Pei working until he's the last one in the office, when the light goes out and he suddenly gets a message. He sees that his friend sent him a quiz to see his fortune, but he accidentally drops his phone into his bin. As he goes to pick it up, he sees the screen that promises to reveal his fortune, and there's suddenly a voice that says the fortune conversion system will be activated. His phone bursts with light, and countless talismans suddenly appear, circling around him. He gets sucked up in the air and thrown into his bin, causing him to disappear. He gets woken up by his friend Yang, who tells him to get up for the dean's class because attendance will be taken. He's confused as he looks around, and his roommates tell him to get up as they leave. Pei realizes he's in his old college dorm, and he's gone back to when he was a freshman. He wonders what's going on, and he thinks about going to his class, but he remembers that the dean never actually took attendance in his class, while there was another teacher who always acted friendly, saying attendance didn't matter, but at the end of the semester, failed everyone that didn't attend. He thinks about how to get back to the future, but realizes that this is his chance to change his life, so he doesn't end up working a dead-end job. He's suddenly about to fall, but his fortune conversion system activates. The system comes to life and introduces itself as Richie. It explains that the system will give him a startup fund to help him get rich. He's given $50,000 to begin with, and he instantly thinks about the things he can buy. Richie goes on to explain that the system will give him money at regular intervals, which he can use to run a company, and based on his profit-to-loss conversion rate, he can earn money for himself. Pei gets excited about getting rich, and Richie generates his profit-to-loss conversion rate, but it doesn't go as expected, because his loss ratio is higher than his profit rate, so losing money is actually more profitable. He gets excited thinking it will be easier to lose money than earn it, so he celebrates how lucky he is. Richie tells him the next step is to register a company, so he wonders what kind of field he should get into, thinking of a shortcut, but Richie mentions a bunch of rules and restrictions, so he realizes he needs to have a legitimate company. He asks for some time to think, and he looks for some ideas. As he checks his phone, he realizes that the games industry would be perfect to lose his money, since it's hard to actually become successful. He tells Richie his decision, but accidentally names his company something ridiculous, but doesn't care since he doesn't plan to be successful. Richie goes on to warn him that he can't tell anyone about the system, or else he will face a punishment. Richie wishes him the best of luck, and a 14-day timer appears. Pei panics as he wonders how he can develop a game in only 14 days, and Yang returns to the dorm. Pei asks him if it's possible to make a game in only 2 weeks, and Yang says it's actually easy, revealing a platform filled with templates and resources that make it possible to make a game without even knowing how to code. We see Pei looking over the platform in the library, realizing it's not the best, but thinks it's perfect for just making a bad game. He spends $20,000 on a driving simulator template, paying $15,000 for background assets, and he adds some other basic features, managing to spend all his money. He thinks about what the gameplay should be like, and he decides to make the most boring game possible. He creates the course for the game, and he ends up making it over 8 hours long, thinking the players will hate it. He thinks it's perfect, calling the game The Lonely Desert Road, and he decides to sell it for only 1 yuan, so he can have the lowest profit in case anyone buys it. He sees that nobody is buying his game, so he becomes happy, thinking he's going to make a profit. Their neighbors enter the dorm, inviting them to play video games, but Pei tells them that he won't be playing, because he wasn't able to sleep the previous night. His roommates play against their neighbors, but they realize that they're all noobs, and they end up losing the match. As they continue playing, Pei rests on his bed, as Yang wonders if they're bothering him, but he reveals that he's enjoying the moment. We learn that after he started working, he bought all the games he wanted, but he wasn't able to play them because he was too busy with his tasks. But he knows that everything's going to be different because he just needs to lose money to earn profit, thinking he'll never need to work again, so he can live the life he always dreamed of. We meet the content creator Chow, and we learn that he's popular for covering bad games in his channel, but he's struggling to make money because he can't find a sponsor. He looks for a game to cover for his next video, and he finds The Lonely Desert Road. He reads the introduction, which mentions that the game will make him reflect on his life. He finds it interesting, so he decides to play it, and he's surprised to learn that it has no story whatsoever. He starts driving in the desert, but he becomes distracted, so he ends up crashing, causing him to lose the game. but he uses his controller, and he spends hours trying to complete it. But he starts to feel drowsy, so he tries to pause the game, but he realizes that he can't, and he ends up crashing again, causing him to become angry. He becomes determined to finish the game, thinking his gaming skills are being tested, so he decides to play it with everything he has. But he still struggles to clear it, and he's now frustrated, thinking about giving up, but a notification mentions that there's something waiting for him at the finish line. So he becomes curious, and he continues playing for hours, as he starts reflecting on his life, thinking he has achieved enlightenment. He finally reaches the finish line, but the game congratulates him for wasting 8 hours of his life, so he becomes angry, calling it a scam. We see Pei in his classroom as Richie shows him his data, informing him that he has 11 days before the next closing date. He thinks he's about to make a fortune because nobody's downloading his game, but at that moment, he hears his classmates talking about it, realizing it has gone viral. So he rushes back home, wondering why people are buying it, and he checks his laptop, realizing that it has become incredibly popular because Chow covered it in his channel. Pei watches his video as he tells his viewers not to play Lonely Desert Road, calling it the most boring game in history, and he mentions that it congratulated him for wasting his time. But this made people curious, so they started buying the game. Yang invites Pei to play it, saying they should give it a try, but he refuses, and he notes that the situation is bad, because he wants his game to flop. So he changes its description, trying to convince the players to ask for a refund, but they tell him that the procedure is tedious, so they decide to let him keep the money. A few days later, we learn that Yang has been playing the game, but he wonders how it became viral, saying it's terrible, but people can't stop playing it. Pei mentions that it wasn't meant to be played, and he falls into despair, knowing he's going to earn less. We cut to a man named Lee, who is the owner of a large gaming company. His assistant informs him about Lonely Desert Road, saying it's becoming popular, but she mentions that it only costs 1 yuan, saying it isn't worth buying because they won't make a profit. But he reveals that he doesn't care about money because his goal is to monopolize the gaming industry, and he fires her for not sharing his vision. Pei searches the internet, wanting to learn how to lose money, but he can't find an answer because nobody's interested in that topic. The closing date arrives, and he realizes that his game earns 70,000 yuan, but because of the conversion rate, he only receives 700. Richie congratulates him for creating a successful game, but he isn't happy because he wanted to earn more money. Richie tells him that he will have 300,000 yuan for the second round, revealing that he has 30 days until the next closing date. But he wonders how he's supposed to spend the money because it can only be used to start a business. Pei returns home, and Yang invites him to play, realizing he's in a bad mood. He agrees to this, so Yang informs their roommates that he's going to join them, thinking they can finally get revenge on their neighbors. Pei carries the team, but they still end up losing because Yang is a terrible player, so everyone blames him for the result. He tells Pei that he should have done a better job, so he becomes upset, calling Yang a burden, but he suddenly comes up with an idea. That evening, Pei thinks about Yang, thinking he's the key to losing all of his money. Pei approaches him as he sleeps, but he sees Pei, so he panics, alerting everyone in the building. The next day, Pei continues to follow Yang, so he becomes upset, asking Pei what he wants. He mentions that he wants Yang, so everyone gets the wrong idea, and he tries to run away, but Pei stops him, saying he needs help developing a game. But Yang is against this, thinking they won't succeed, and he's about to walk away. But Pei reveals that he has already made 300,000 yuan because he's the creator of Lonely Desert Road. Yang is surprised to hear this, calling him a genius, and Yang agrees to work with him, saying he will find books about the topic. Back in the dorm, we see that Yang bought books about programming, and Pei thinks they're going to fail because he isn't being practical. Pei reminds him that they don't need to write codes because they already have the online platform to make the job easier, so Yang wonders what he should do with the books. He tries reading them anyways, but he immediately falls asleep, and Pei is happy to see this, thinking his plan is going to work. The next day, Pei thinks about the game they should make, knowing his company is popular because of a driving game. So he needs to think of something different, because people will download the game if it's similar to Lonely Desert Road. He considers spending all of his funds to create a bigger game and intentionally fail to launch it, but Richie warns him that he will receive a penalty, so he ultimately decides against it. He realizes that mobile players aren't familiar with his company, so he plans to create a mobile game. He knows that card games are popular, but most of them fail because they try to copy the #1 game called The Three Kingdoms instead of coming up with a new idea. So he decides to make the worst card game in the world, telling Yang that they're going to hire artists to help them with the design. Yang tells him that there's a cheaper way to do it, but he's determined to lose all of his money, so he tells Yang that he's going to invest everything he has to create the best card game possible. They eat at a restaurant, as Pei tells Yang to rewrite the stories of the characters, but he becomes worried, thinking it's going to ruin the game. But Pei tells him that they must not be afraid to innovate, saying he should let his imagination run wild. He thinks about turning the characters into strange creatures, and Pei calls him a genius. He decides to hire Yang, telling him that he will receive 3,000 yuan per month, and he's overjoyed to hear this. Meanwhile, Li's new assistant tells him that Three Kingdoms is losing players because it's difficult to obtain rare cards. But he explains that the game won't be addictive if they change this, saying card games are on the decline, so they should just let it be. Li's assistant confirms this, and he mentions that Pei's company is planning to copy Three Kingdoms, saying there's no creativity whatsoever. But Li reveals that he was the one who picked the theme for their game, thinking his assistant is questioning his creativity, so he decides to fire him. We return to Pei, as he laughs at his creativity, so he decides to fire him. We return to Pei, as he laughs at Yang's ideas, thinking their game is going to be ridiculous. He checks his laptop, wanting to hire a rookie artist to create ugly designs, and he finds someone interesting, thinking he's going to help them fail. The next day, Yang suggests turning the characters into girls, but Pei rejects the idea, thinking it could make their game successful. So he explains that he doesn't want the characters to lose their uniqueness, and Yang believes him, as he notes that Yang is an idiot. They ride a boat, as Pei tells Yang that they must prioritize the concept design, so he suggests hiring a great artist, but Pei is against this, because he doesn't want them to